I now want to move on to talking about the vision of this conference. It's about data, analytics, and action. And all of those words are about, in our speak, applying geography everywhere. The little opening video got at it. You and I are living in an interesting time. It's a changing time. On the cover of the Washington Post yesterday, I had 3 articles about it. Change that's going in the wrong direction. We're being challenged with climate change, overpopulation, use of natural resources beyond a sustainable level. We're being challenged with social conflicts around the world. It's everywhere. And yet, you are a kind of counterforce in many ways for addressing so many of those challenges. Geography, the science of our world, is a kind of integrative science. It provides us contextual settings and also rich content, scientific content, and a frame for bringing this together to be able to address these sort of challenges. And whether you're doing small, isolated pieces of work, or whether you're looking at the whole world at the same time, the science and the technology is common among you. It supports the notion of a process and a framework where observational information can be brought in, whether it's remote sensing or censuses or mapping of various types. Observational data brought into modeling and analytics to create understanding. And that's all designed to support the idea of planning and designing and policy making and ultimately decisions and action. This is kind of a virtuous cycle. And it is the thing that is common to basically everybody here in the audience. Whether you're focused in one aspect of it or the entire context of it, it's repeated again and again and again in those maps that I showed you and the work that you do. My forecast on this is that your work, the work of GIS professionals, will increasingly become essential infrastructure for our nation and for our society in general. You're building that infrastructure. GIS itself started 50 years ago with the work and thinking of Roger Tomlinson, has evolved from mainframes to what it is today. This slide is really representing a new pattern. A whole new pattern is emerging with our technology. And it's being technology-driven with big data and the Internet of Things and faster machines, smart devices, all of these things we read about and now are starting to use. It's also being driven by content, new kinds of content, not the old USGS map anymore, although that's not going away. It provides us the frame, but also real-time content, social media content, content at the speed of light. And this is coming up, these 2 pillars are reinforcing many innovations to support a new pattern of GIS. I like to call this a web GIS. This isn't just web mapping or web services. It's actually a GIS on the web. And the applications from this are trending in a different direction. They're focused on simple, highly visual, interactive, real-time, collaborative, 3D. And the pattern for that implementation is also changing. Instead of writing everything in Fortran from scratch or writing in AML applications or blah, 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 we simply configure this technology for application ready to go. That shortens the time. It's an agile and an open architecture for doing that. We're moving with this architecture from not only client-server systems of record kind of systems to what is popularly being called systems of engagement. Systems of engagement don't obsolete systems of record. Systems of record are about transactionally updating a database with multiple views and services from them. The system of engagement is, however, a different system, and I want you each to recognize this kind of system. It has a lot more to do with social media type of systems. I have an identity. I'm connected. I can get content in real time, and I can share, and other people can share what I've got. It's services driven from multiple kinds of services, the weather service, the geologic service, the topographic service, the vegetation service, the demographic services. And instead of putting it all into one data bank, I'm dynamically able to bring this together through mashups, web mapping stuff, and look at it from any device anywhere, through a browser, through a device, through a desktop like that. And what's amazing about this system, unlike some of its predecessors, it is changing the way we do things, but it integrates in the previous systems. Servers can serve into the system. Desktops can be the recipients of the services. They're hydrated by this dial tone of geographic data. And this, ladies and gentlemen, allows us to think big. We can think big about the idea of empowering GIS across whole organizations. GIS professionals are at the center of it. They build and manage the infrastructure. But your good work can be shared through apps to knowledge workers and executives and casual users, and the open data community, the idea that government becomes a platform for our society. This means everyone can look at, get access to, can collaborate, and get the power of what historically has been wrapped up in our little profession. That doesn't mean that our profession goes away. It's vital to be able to make this work. But we start to move from the idea of segmented or sectorial or ology-driven or department-driven information sets to the idea of shared, networked access to geographic understanding, that little cycle workflow of knowledge creation. It basically opens up access as services or dial tones across the organization. And you know, particularly you know, what this means. It means integration. It means collaboration. It means opening up access. Now, this vision is constructed from a series of changes. This isn't a shift like I can't do that anymore, I do this now. It's a shift in emphasis. And the shift is from traditional systems of record, client-server architectures, to the idea of web services and apps, from standalone desktops to connected desktops that are hydrated with information, from focus on the data models, which continues to be important, to the idea of focus on the output, the map, the information product, web maps, from static to real time, from custom writing every application from scratch to the idea of configurable templates that I can load and go with, and from all-purpose applications like ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro does 1,000 things, to the idea of an app that does just one or two things that I can understand and be focused about. And from the idea of keeping my data close, my agency's data or whatever, to the idea of opening up in the open source world the data as shared data and services. These are a long list, but worthwhile studying because, ladies and gentlemen, you and I are in a transition zone, which I think is transformational. WebGIS also has this interesting characteristic of being able to be shared between and among organizations. Federal agencies contributing with states, contributing with locals, contributing with citizens, accessing with NGOs and schools and businesses, feeding on this infrastructure. Now, does everybody have to do this? And do we share all data? No, absolutely not. I'm simply saying that the technology is available for doing this new kind of thinking. last fall, I was with the mayor of Los Angeles, and he said, you know, Jack, I've been working with you for 40 years, not him, but the city, and every department in my city has GIS. They're using it in police and fire and here and there, running the city. And he was just very excited. But he said, you know, my departments don't work so well together. And also, I spend all this money on creating all this data, and it definitely drives the missions and so on, but the public doesn't have access to that. What can we do about it? So he started thinking about this notion, about the notion of a GIS hub. So a couple weeks ago, he announced and made available all of his layers for the city in an open platform. It's basically a web GIS, so that the content can not only be exchanged among and between city staff as services, but also can be made available to businesses and startups. His idea was, I want to leverage the city to create startups. Initially, his staff was saying, well, you know, Mayor, you know those startups, what they're going to do is take the data and then they'll build a cool app and they'll try to sell the app back to us. So, well, that's exactly what I want. I want to be able to use the government's data to create innovation in the city. So 5 new startups, lots of new apps started to emerge even in the last few weeks. But I want to make my stuff available to the citizens and to the academy and to other leaders at the county level, at the state level, like that. I share that because it is a real example, and it's creating a lot of excitement in the GIS world. I think this will evolve through time. As these systems open up and services replace simply open data, we will move to a new age of citizen participation and citizen engagement. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are the ones. You're actually the ones behind it. You can actually awaken the world to this notion of mapping and data and participation. And in each of your domains, you serve somebody, right? You serve, of course, the boss and the boss's boss and all of that, but you also serve the public. I think how we make this actually happen is exactly what this meeting is about. Learning these patterns, creating, sharing,